And good morning. It's always a pleasure when I have Karen Onen in with me, and she is from the East Central Regional Transportation Coordinating Council,
Yep.
and that serves 5 counties in our listening area, and there are RTCCs around the state of Minnesota. And we've been doing these get-togethers, Karen, a couple a month now. So we've been trying to do a kind of a comprehensive, almost visual, but in this case audio, of what goes on with transportation in our listening area. That's really what this is all about. And we've had a variety of interviews, and this morning, Karen, we are going to be talking with Sheri. Do the introduction. I'll let you do that.
All right. Well, I'm so pleased to have Sheri Wegner from ConnectAbility of Minnesota. She is their executive director, and she's going to talk to us a bit about their program that they have, and it's just west of us. So they do cover Mille Lacs County, but also into the St. Cloud area, but I'll let her explain that further. And they've got a special program going on there that is extremely interesting to me, especially because we're just east of them and we do overlap. Sheri, hello. Welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming on today. Tell us a little bit about your background and then how you got into transportation, and then what is ConnectAbility?
Absolutely. So I've been with ConnectAbility for 2 years, and it's not a new organization. We've been around since 1954, but for almost all of those years, it was known as United Cerebral Palsy of Central Minnesota. And during COVID, we expanded our services, we changed our name, we rebranded, we moved, and we really developed our services in a lot of different areas. So we're a nonprofit that provides coordinated services for people with all disabilities of any age and low-income seniors. We have the ability to do it in all 87 counties, but right now, actively, we are in 36 counties as of today. And part of that is transportation coordination. And during COVID, I spent a lot of my time in different virtual social services meetings and different organizations and speaking to different counties, and really started to understand the extent of the transportation crisis there is in Minnesota in rural transportation, and started to figure out there's got to be a solution to this. I am a problem solver by nature, and I just felt like we could do better for the people that have absolutely no transportation options at all, and particularly in the population that we serve. So a couple of years ago, Dakota County started a pilot program with Lyft, connecting people that use the Minnesota waiver support system so they could use their support dollars of transportation through Lyft, which was very innovative. And they successfully did that for 2 years. And I met with them and understood their program and tried to figure out how to adjust that to rural Minnesota, because we didn't have a built-in Lyft driver network. We weren't metro. We didn't have a lot of those pieces. And in our area, it's not augmenting with other public transportation. In many cases, there's no transportation in some of the counties that we're serving. So we really started looking into this, having lots of conversations with Lyft. It took about 18 months of conversations due to COVID and California fires and all kinds of barriers. But we were able to get some of the bigger barriers lifted in Minnesota to allow Lyft to be a more viable option. So now in Minnesota, regardless of what county you're in or what population your city is, you can have Lyft drivers supported by the Lyft Corporation. So I live in Painesville. Little tiny Roscoe of 103 people can have Lyft drivers if they want to. The other big barrier was the ages of the vehicles used to have to be 3 years or newer. And of course, in rural Minnesota, we all keep our cars for 8 to 12 years. And so a 3-year-old vehicle just really wasn't an option for us. So we spoke with them again, and now you can have a vehicle that is 2010 or newer, as long as it doesn't have 100,000 miles, and you can be a Lyft driver. Another barrier that we were running into, particularly in the northern area of the state, was pickup trucks. If you don't have a pickup truck up there, you're not going anywhere during the winter. So they can now be Lyft drivers with pickups. And then the big critical part for what we do was we wanted to provide the population we serve with the option of using Lyft So just like Dakota County, we worked with Lyft, and we can provide waiver billing services in all 87 counties in Minnesota, which is amazing. And through all this process, MnDOT, who is the lead agency for these state RTCCs, noticed what we were doing and approached us and said, hey, you guys are really coming up with this solution, and our region does have quite a bit of rural in the counties, and asked us if we would step up and join the RTCC family. So we did. In July of this year, we became the 7W RTCC, and we do, in fact, overlap with Mille Lacs County with you guys, which is fantastic because it helps build that connectability between all these different RTCCs, so it's not ending at borders, which is awesome for getting these rides available to folks that need them. At the same time, Minnesota's Department of Human Services, who had helped Dakota County get started, also noticed what we were doing, and they stepped up and asked us if we would work with them on a grant to help people that have disabilities who would like to find a job or maintain a job using Lyft. We could help facilitate that. And so there's some grant dollars that we can use to help people do that through Lyft as well. So Lyft is an exciting opportunity. It's not the solution for all of the transportation problems in the state, but it's definitely what I call a super tool because it does so many different things. And this is where I'm going to get on a baby soapbox really fast, and I'll talk quickly. The cool thing about Lyft is when we create a Lyft driver in a community, we've created an economy because somebody now has a job. When we create Lyft drivers, we create essentially a public transportation option that wasn't there. So now we're creating a transportation network that didn't exist in these small communities that have nothing. If we're serving people with disabilities who are using their state waiver support, then we're also bringing in state funds into that community supporting their economy. And then the people who are getting rides aren't limited only to medical rides and government appointment rides. They are now allowed to use these services for anything that they want. So if they want to go to grandma's birthday party, if they want to go to the grocery store or church, or they want to go down to the bar and play bar bingo, they get to do that. And they can also become employed because now that there's Lyft drivers, they can use Lyft for employment rights, which means we've also helped the local businesses get more employees. So the ripple effect of this is amazing. And we've even worked with an agency that is going to be using Lyft drivers to not transport people, but transport food from Catholic Charities who have their Meals on Wheels, the frozen program. And there's too many people in some of our rural counties that don't have a way to get to the free food. So they're going to be using a Lyft driver as a route driver to deliver the food. So now we've also got food sourcing as a solution with this super tool. So this is a pretty incredible program, and it's not costing the taxpayers millions of dollars to set it up. It's not costing them anything because anybody can sign up and go through the background check and the driving history to become a Lyft driver and get paid. And anybody can choose to download the app and use Lyft. And anybody who needs services on their waiver can contact ConnectAbility of Minnesota and utilize their services. So we've removed so many of those barriers and have really built this incredible program that's going to open up the possibilities and let people live very self-directed lives, both able-bodied and people with barriers. So it's so exciting.
Yeah, this is a win-win-win, is the way it sounds to me. And I'm kind of curious, as you were talking about, do you have an idea how many Lyft drivers are already part of this program specifically for the areas that you're talking about?
We don't. The interesting thing is they are not ConnectAbility drivers or RTCC drivers. They're Lyft drivers. So we don't have that information because they're not ours.
Okay.
But at any time when you have the Lyft app, you can go on and see how many drivers are available in your area at that time. I don't have the matrix that's owned by Lyft,
Sure.
although I have a feeling that they will be sharing a lot of that with us in the near future as they have seen a huge spike in their Lyft drivers in Minnesota since we've started this initiative of just trying to get the word out.
And the difference, too, I know Karen and I have talked to many different groups within our area that provide transportation, and they talk a lot about volunteer drivers and all that with Lyft drivers, and not that you're speaking for Lyft here, but it is a paid-for position, correct?
It is, yes. And we have worked with a couple of different volunteer driver programs to see how to use Lyft as a super tool to actually augment, not destroy, their volunteer driver program, which has also been pretty awesome because instead of losing the volunteer drivers, they can now use it to incentivize volunteer drivers.
Sheri, you said what, about a year and a half, 2 years this has been kind of coming to fruition?
So it's been 18 months of the conversations to make it happen, and it finally came to roost that we could actually get the green light and start making all this magic happen in July of this year.
That is incredible.
And the thing that is really exciting for me is the fact that we can start really ramping up the marketing for Lyft. We do need to get drivers, that's kind of the first set of things. And if we can start building a Lyft pool, then we can, connect people to Lyft and to ConnectAbility to be able to deal with their waivers, because they have to go through ConnectAbility to do the waiver program through Lyft. But it's sort of like two separate entities. But Sheri and her organization was able to bring Lyft into the areas that had small populations, which Lyft wasn't able to come into them before. Sheri, can I ask a quick question here about the waivers? I hate to say this, but I'm not really clear on the waivers and how that works. But if I needed to go to the doctor, I would use a waiver and go through you and whatever program it is that I'm working with, like Medicare. But then if I wanted to go to the grocery store, that would not be paid for through a waiver, would it?
Actually, it is, and that's the amazing part of this. So historically, your transportation funds covered on a waiver are mostly for medical or government appointments. With this system, with DHS's nod, it is person-centered, self-directed. And so the way that it works is if we receive a contract from the state that says Bob can use Lyft, we can put, say, $200 on his app every month. And every month he can decide how, when, and where he wants to use that $200 to take Lyft rides to the grocery store, to church, to Grandma's 86th birthday party. He can do all of that and truly have a self-directed life through transportation.
So that's a big step there, because that was one of the, I don't want to say issues, but before it was much more limited. So this is taking it a whole nother step, Sheri, to be able to have that accessibility to whatever they really want to do, almost like having a bus pass, so to speak, and within that certain amount of money to be able to go.
And the other thing is, too, I understand if you get a few people together in the vehicle, you can split the rate.
Yes, so you can do a multi-person rate on the ride as well. When we do it on waivers, we set it up for single person just for the safety and security of the population we serve. But one of the things I would want to point out is this Lyft program isn't just for people being served on a waiver. You and I would now be able to use Lyft in our own community ourselves, or the 86-year-old elderly person who can financially afford to take rides, who just didn't have an option because there was no bus or taxi, can now call a Lyft driver and get taken to church on Sunday morning so she can be in church, or go to the grocery store instead of having to rely on somebody in her family to either take her or go pick up her groceries. And as you get older, of course, you lose that independence. And can you imagine how that would feel to once again have the freedom of mobility, that you don't have to be the driver? That's incredible.
It is. It gives them that sense of independence where they're not being dependent all the time on others. Sheri, what is the best way to get more information on this?
So they can certainly email us directly, and that's at hello@connectabilitymn.org, or they can call our office, and that's 320-253-0765. We have a couple of pages on our website about how to become a Lyft rider, how to become a Lyft driver, and concerns that caregivers have, and as we're addressing those. But ConnectAbility of Minnesota is also currently building a training program, a virtual training program for anybody who wants to learn more about how to be a rider. So if our population who maybe has some mental barriers, to make sure that they do it safely, and these will be one-on-one in person, so they will know how to use the app, they will know how to safely identify the car and driver, know how to get a ride and return a ride. We're also working on building a statewide certified drivers program, which means that whoever, myself, becomes a Lyft driver, I'm a Lyft driver. But if I choose to do the next step through ConnectAbility of Minnesota and go through their training to become a certified driver, that means I have additional training about CPR and HIPAA and the different disabilities and barriers and how to safely help somebody in and out of a vehicle and possibly offer door-to-door service. And they're not going to get paid more for that service, but then an organization like ConnectAbility of Minnesota or the Lions Club or an RTCC that works with other organizations will use those as preferred drivers, which would guarantee those drivers more rides, more jobs, more income. So once again, you've got this synergy of win-win-win of safer rides, better employment for the drivers, more opportunities for other service organizations to utilize the program. It's just incredible.
Sheri, you've done a great job to fill us in on all this. And as more of these things develop, Sheri, we would love to have you back on again and talk in more detail on these individual aspects that you're talking about going forward.
Oh, I'd love the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Karen, what do you think?
Just want to say again that your website that a person can go to find out more information is
ConnectAbilityMN.org.
Go to the website there. And then the phone number, so many of our listeners, too, like to do that, 320-253-0765. And Karen has the RTCC, the website as well, where she's trying to do kind of a one-stop shop, and all that information will be there, right, Karen, down the road?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, I've learned so much today. I mean, I knew some of this, but the more we talk about it, the deeper it gets into my head, and I'm just smiling because it's so awesome, Sheri. You've done so much great work, and we are really, really interested in getting this going here. I know in northern Mille Lacs County, I mean, they really need it, and, well, all over. With the volunteer driver pool shrinking, this will be able to take up the slack. So thank you so much. This was just wonderful. I'm so glad we had you on here today.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. That's fantastic of you.
Sheri Wegner, again, the Executive Director at ConnectAbility of Minnesota. Thank you again for your time, dear. And this update is being brought to you in part by our friends at MnDOT.